Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. When God marks a life for purpose, he doesn't announce it to the crowd, he reveals it through pressure. Some people don't walk into rooms and change the mood. They walk into systems and quietly start breaking patterns. That's the kind of presence a God-chosen Sigma female carries. No noise, no announcement, no committee meeting. Yet suddenly things feel different. People feel uneasy, and certain behaviors can't survive anymore. And here's a fact most people don't like to admit. Studies in social psychology show that when someone consistently refuses group pressure and operates by internal conviction, they trigger discomfort and defensiveness in others, not because they're wrong, but because they're rare. Independence doesn't just stand out, it exposes. Now add spiritual alignment to that kind of independence, and you don't just get admiration, you get reactions, strange ones, sudden ones, sometimes dramatic ones. People start acting funny, switching sides, giving backhanded compliments, becoming overly curious, or suddenly remembering scriptures they never lived by. It's not because she changed overnight, it's because they finally realized she's not moving by their rules, their timelines, or their approval. And let's be honest, some people are fine with destiny, as long as it doesn't sit next to them at the table. They'll clap for miracles on the internet, but get uncomfortable when favor shows up in their own circle. That's when the behavior shifts, the energy changes, and the masks start slipping. Sometimes politely, sometimes messily, sometimes with a smile that deserves an award. So today, we're not talking about fairy tale chosen talk or social media spirituality. We're talking about the real, unfiltered things people start doing when they finally realize a Sigma female isn't just different, she's divinely assigned. And once that realization hits, trust me, the room never stays the same. Number 1, they start treating her like a problem instead of a person. The moment people sense a Sigma female is God-chosen, they shift. They stop seeing her as just another human with flaws and dreams, and instead start treating her like an obstacle. It isn't about anything she's done wrong. In fact, most of the time she hasn't done anything at all. Her calm confidence, her unwavering focus, her ability to navigate life without asking for permission, it all threatens the structures people are comfortable with. And when humans feel threatened, their instinct is to categorize. They label what they don't understand as a problem, because it's easier to confront a problem than to confront someone operating on a higher level. Suddenly, everyday interactions turn into tests. Her opinions are questioned unnecessarily, her choices are criticized without cause, her silence is dissected, and her presence becomes a topic of speculation. People start thinking in terms of control, how to influence her, how to bend her into the ordinary, how to make her fit into the predictable mold they've grown used to. They forget that she isn't there to perform for anyone or conform to anyone's expectations. The most striking part is that this behavior isn't usually overt. It's subtle. They smile, nod, and speak politely, but their energy carries suspicion, judgment, and quiet resistance. It's exhausting for them to accept someone who refuses to compromise their essence just to appease others. And while some try to rationalize it as care, concern, or guidance, deep down it's fear disguised as advice. They fear the exposure she brings, the mirror of their own weaknesses, the reminder that not everyone follows the herd, that not everyone can be swayed by peer pressure or social validation. In short, a Sigma female's mere existence challenges comfort zones, routines, and unspoken hierarchies. People start treating her like a problem because they can't digest that some forces aren't meant to be managed or manipulated. They can't handle that she moves in alignment with purpose, not popularity. And in their attempts to fix her, they reveal more about their own insecurities than anything about her. She remains untouched, unbothered, and quietly powerful, leaving others scrambling in the shadows of their own inadequacy. Number 2, They test her boundaries just to see if she's really different. Once people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, a strange thing happens. They feel the need to push her. They test her limits, not out of curiosity, but out of doubt. They want proof that her composure, her clarity, and her independence are real, and not just a carefully crafted performance. Every boundary she sets becomes a challenge for them, a puzzle they think they can solve. They send subtle jabs disguised as jokes, ask probing questions disguised as conversation, or create situations designed to provoke a reaction. And when she doesn't respond the way they expect, they're confused, frustrated, or even intimidated. What they fail to understand is that her boundaries aren't rules for others. They're expressions of her self-respect and alignment with purpose. She doesn't negotiate her peace or her values to satisfy anyone, no matter how clever or persistent they are. And that makes some people uncomfortable. They've spent their lives bending others to their will or testing limits for control, and suddenly someone doesn't play by the same script. The testing isn't just about her. It's a mirror reflecting their own inability to accept strength without resistance. This boundary testing can take many forms. People may invade her personal space, question her decisions, or subtly challenge her time and priorities. They're not malicious in the obvious sense. They genuinely want to see if she cracks, but what they perceive as cracks or weaknesses simply don't exist. Every boundary she maintains only confirms her authenticity, her discipline, and her alignment with something far greater than ordinary social games. The irony is that the more they test her, the more they reveal their own limitations. She isn't hardened or arrogant. She's simply untouchable in the sense that she moves with a confidence anchored in purpose. Every failed attempt to provoke a reaction, every subtle manipulation that falls flat, only reinforces her aura of inevitability. People leave the interaction unsettled because they expected her to bend, and when she doesn't, they realize that she's operating on a level they can't reach, a standard they can't shake, and a path they can't influence. Number 3. They gossip in ways that sound like concern, but are actually fear. When people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. Conversations that once felt ordinary start to carry a hidden tension. People begin talking about her in ways that are wrapped in concern, advice, or casual observation. But beneath the words lies something far less innocent: fear. They whisper about her decisions, her presence, her calm confidence, and her influence on situations, all while trying to appear thoughtful or protective. But the truth is, they are unsettled because her existence challenges their sense of control, comfort, and predictability. The fear isn't always conscious. Many don't even realize that what they call concern is really a reaction to someone they can't influence or predict. They talk about her in the background, dissect her every move, and subtly question her motives, hoping to find a flaw they can point out. They might say things like, "She's strong, but I hope she doesn't overextend herself," or "She's very independent, I just hope she's being careful." On the surface, it sounds like empathy, but it's really anxiety disguised as care. This kind of gossip has a unique energy because it's fueled by the realization that she doesn't fit the usual social patterns. She doesn't bend to peer pressure, she doesn't seek validation, and she refuses to compromise her purpose for convenience or approval. That makes people uneasy because most are used to reading compliance and influence in others. When those cues disappear, they start filling the void with speculation. And the more they talk, the more they reveal their own insecurities. Their fear makes them overanalyze her, undercut her in small ways, and spread narratives that protect them from confronting the fact that she moves on a level they can't reach. They may think their whispers are harmless, but in reality, It's a subtle attempt to exert influence over someone who is untouchable in her alignment with purpose. At the end of the day, gossip becomes a mirror. It reflects their discomfort, their need for control, and their struggle to accept that some people are simply beyond ordinary judgment or manipulation. The Sigma female remains unaffected, leaving them to wrestle with their own fear in silence. Number 4, they secretly compete with her while pretending to support her. Once people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, they often mask their insecurity with a facade of support. On the surface, they compliment her, encourage her, and nod along as if they're her ally. But underneath that polished exterior, a quiet competition is brewing. They watch her moves, measure her success, and compare her progress to their own, not because they want to genuinely celebrate her, but because her growth highlights their stagnation. Her accomplishments don't just inspire awe, they expose gaps in others' ambition, discipline, or vision, and that exposure can sting more than failure itself. This hidden rivalry is subtle. They don't openly confront her or try to sabotage her directly. Instead, they smile, give polite praise, and even offer advice, but every interaction carries an invisible question. Can I match this? Can I outdo her? They analyze how she handles challenges, how she commands respect without demanding it, and how effortlessly she stays true to her principles. Every small victory she achieves becomes a benchmark, and they measure themselves against it, often in secret, trying to close the gap without revealing that they feel inferior. What's striking is that their behavior is driven less by malice and more by a deep, almost instinctive need to compete. People are conditioned to operate in social hierarchies, and someone like her disrupts the usual order without even trying. Her independence, her alignment with purpose, and her refusal to chase approval make them anxious. Pretending support while secretly competing allows them to feel a sense of connection, control, and validation while still wrestling with the truth. She operates on a level they can't reach through shortcuts, imitation, or manipulation. In the end, this dynamic often backfires on them. The Sigma female doesn't compete for the sake of proving herself or diminishing others. She moves steadily, purposefully, and authentically. Their covert rivalry only exposes their insecurity, impatience, and need for comparison. She remains untouchable in her trajectory, while they're left chasing shadows of achievement, trapped in a game they didn't even know they were playing. Her calm certainty doesn't just outshine them, it quietly rewrites the rules of engagement in every room she enters. Number 5. They ask intrusive spiritual questions to measure her access to God. When people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, curiosity often takes a strange, invasive turn. They don't just notice her wisdom, her calm under pressure, or her clarity of purpose. They want proof. They start asking spiritual questions, not out of genuine desire to learn, but as a test to see if she really walks in alignment with something greater. Every answer they request, every subtle probe, is less about understanding her and more about measuring her connection, trying to quantify what they can't see or control. These questions are rarely harmless. They range from casual, "How do you stay so grounded?" to pointed, "Do you really believe that? Or is it just talk?" Beneath the polite phrasing is skepticism, sometimes envy, and often a quiet challenge. They're trying to find cracks, inconsistencies, or hesitation that might prove that her confidence and calm are just performances. They hope for a moment where she falters, where she reveals doubt, where they can reclaim the illusion that their reality is the standard. But a Sigma female doesn't bend to tests, spiritual or otherwise. Her connection, her faith, her alignment with purpose isn't for show, and it doesn't need validation. She speaks with authority, but not arrogance, and acts in ways that reflect understanding rather than theory. Every attempt to gauge her access to God or divine insight only exposes the asker's own insecurities. The more they probe, the more transparent their doubt becomes, and the clearer it is that her influence isn't dependent on their approval. This dynamic creates tension because people are wired to look for patterns, explanations, and control. When someone like her operates outside of conventional metrics of influence, they scramble to understand through questioning. But no amount of interrogation can shift her alignment. Instead, her patience, composure, and authenticity quietly dismantle their assumptions. They leave these encounters unsettled, realizing that divine access, clarity of purpose, and inner strength aren't things you can measure, manipulate, or debate. They are lived experiences that only reveal themselves in action. Number 6. They minimize her achievements by calling them luck or timing. The moment people recognize a Sigma female is God-chosen, they often feel a strange need to explain her success in ways that make it feel ordinary. Her achievements, no matter how extraordinary or hard-earned, are suddenly attributed to luck, timing, or circumstances outside of her control. It's as if acknowledging her skill, discipline, and purpose would force them to confront the uncomfortable truth that she operates on a level they can't match. They say things like, "She just got lucky," or "It was the right place at the right time," pretending it diminishes her brilliance. But all it really does is reveal their own inability to understand excellence rooted in alignment and preparation. This minimization isn't always intentional cruelty, it's a defense mechanism. They are confronted with someone whose consistency, clarity, and focus disrupt the idea that success is random or socially predictable. By reducing her accomplishments to chance, they create a mental cushion, a way to convince themselves that her path isn't replicable, that her power isn't threatening, and that their own lack of movement or vision isn't a problem. It's easier to say she got lucky than to admit that discipline, intuition, and spiritual alignment are forces most people refuse to cultivate. The irony is that the more they attempt to downplay her, the more her true nature shines. Luck and timing have nothing to do with her consistent results, her ability to navigate life's pressures, or her uncanny knack for turning challenges into opportunities. Every effort to minimize only underlines what they cannot achieve: mastery over self, clarity of purpose, and alignment with something far greater than ordinary expectation. At the end of the day, minimizing her success is a silent admission. They recognize her superiority, they fear it, and they feel powerless to challenge it. A Sigma female doesn't need validation or applause. Her achievements stand on their own, undeniable and transformative. The more others try to diminish them, the louder her reality speaks, leaving those who doubted her scrambling to reconcile their perception with the undeniable truth. Number 7. They feel exposed around her without knowing why. When people come face to face with a Sigma female who is God-chosen, there's an immediate, almost physical shift in how they feel. It's subtle at first, an inexplicable tension, a nervousness, a sense that they're being observed in ways that aren't literal. They don't understand why they feel exposed, and that's exactly the point. She doesn't need to judge them, comment on their mistakes, or call them out directly. Her presence alone highlights the cracks in their own behavior, their compromises, and the parts of themselves they've kept hidden from the world. Simply by being herself, she holds up a mirror, and that mirror makes them uncomfortable. This exposure comes from her clarity and alignment. She doesn't operate from fear, insecurity, or the need for approval, and that makes every interaction with her feel like a test they didn't sign up for. When she speaks, it's precise and deliberate. When she moves, it's calm and unwavering. These small, natural actions force people to confront how inconsistent, reactive, or performative their own lives are. They sense the difference between her authenticity and their own compromises, and that realization makes them defensive, jittery, or even resentful. The most fascinating part is that she doesn't need to say a word for this effect to take hold. No lectures, no criticism, no manipulation. Just being aligned with her purpose radiates a kind of unspoken authority that exposes weakness and mediocrity in others. People may try to talk more, joke louder, or dominate conversations to mask it, but nothing changes the fact that they feel the weight of their own inconsistency around her. Feeling exposed is never comfortable, and it's often why people distance themselves, gossip, or test her limits. They don't want to confront the truth that she's operating on a higher plane, and that their own fears, compromises, and indecisions are visible in comparison. She remains untouched by their discomfort, and in that, she demonstrates the power of living fully aligned with purpose. Her presence alone forces reflection, accountability, and sometimes the silent admission. They are unprepared to face someone who is truly unshakable. Number 8. They try to humble her even when she isn't arrogant. When people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, some of them feel an urgent need to bring her down a notch, even though she hasn't acted superior, boasted, or demanded attention. Her confidence isn't loud, her power isn't flashy, and her presence isn't about control, but her very existence reminds others of what they lack: self-discipline, clarity, and alignment. That reminder unsettles them. Because they feel small in comparison, they instinctively try to humble her, as if projecting their insecurity can somehow level the playing field. This attempt can take many forms. They make backhanded comments disguised as advice, challenge her decisions unnecessarily, or highlight minor mistakes as if they define her. They may question her motives or downplay her insights, trying to provoke a reaction that proves she's just human. But she doesn't rise to these traps. She doesn't need validation. She doesn't crave approval, and she doesn't respond to subtle jabs. Her calm presence exposes the futility of their attempts, and that only frustrates them more. The reason they feel compelled to humble her is simple: her authenticity threatens their comfort. They are used to seeing people negotiate their worth for acceptance, to bending under social pressure, and to hiding flaws to maintain status. Her refusal to compromise her values or shrink her identity highlights every gap in their own character. In their minds, if they can make her seem less, they can restore the illusion that their reality is the standard and their insecurity is normal. Ironically, the more they try to humble her, the more it emphasizes her strength. She doesn't need to assert superiority to prove herself. Her consistency, composure, and alignment do that effortlessly. Every attempt to diminish her backfires, revealing their fear and envy and making her unshakable presence even more apparent. People who try to humble a Sigma female end up revealing more about themselves than about her, and she continues to move forward, untouched, steady, and profoundly untouchable. Number 9. They imitate her energy but can't maintain it. When people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, some try to copy her. They notice her calm confidence, her unshakable focus, and the way she carries herself without needing approval. And they think, if they can mirror her energy, they might grasp even a fraction of her power. They mimic her gestures, her tone, even her disciplined routines, hoping to blend in or gain favor. At first, it might seem convincing, and they might fool the casual observer, but deep down, it's all surface level. Energy like hers isn't something you can fake. It's forged through clarity, self-mastery, and alignment with purpose. This imitation is desperate, often unconscious. They wear her calmness like a mask, but the mask slips the moment pressure mounts. A minor setback, a tense conversation, or a challenge to their ego exposes the gap between the Sigma female's authentic energy and their imitation. They try to emulate her resilience, but when life tests them, cracks appear. Her energy is consistent because it's rooted in principle, not performance. Their attempts, no matter how polished, reveal insecurity and a reliance on external validation rather than internal alignment. What makes this dynamic fascinating is that it often backfires on them. By imitating her, they draw attention to themselves, highlighting their lack of substance compared to her natural authority. Their efforts are transparent, and anyone attuned can see the difference. Meanwhile, the Sigma female remains unaffected, moving with the same clarity and calm, untouched by their mimicry. The contrast between her authenticity and their performance becomes a quiet, undeniable statement of her power. Ultimately, imitation exposes fear and envy more than it accomplishes anything else. People mimic because they recognize her superiority, but they underestimate the discipline, purpose, and divine alignment that fuel it. They can replicate posture and speech, but not essence. She doesn't need to teach them, prove anything, or call them out. Their failed imitation speaks for her. Every attempt to copy her energy only reinforces the reality that she operates on a level they can never truly access. Number 10. They try to drag her into drama to see if she'll break character. When people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, they often test her in one of the oldest ways they know. They try to pull her into chaos. They stir conflict, gossip, or unnecessary tension, expecting that her calm exterior will falter, that her focus will crack, or that she'll finally react like everyone else. It's as if they believe that by dragging her into drama, they can prove she's ordinary, vulnerable, or just another person to manipulate. What they don't understand is that her composure isn't an act. It's a reflection of discipline, clarity, and a deep alignment with purpose that doesn't bend to noise or provocation. These attempts to provoke her can be subtle or blatant. They may whisper rumors, create small conflicts, or pressure her to respond to situations that carry emotional weight. They think if they push hard enough, she'll reveal impatience, anger, or insecurity, and they can then categorize her as just human, easily swayed or controlled. But every effort misfires. She doesn't engage in games she doesn't need to win. She doesn't react for validation, and she doesn't expend energy on proving herself to people who thrive on chaos. Her calm is not weakness. It's an unshakable foundation that turns their attempts at disruption into lessons about futility. The real effect on those trying to drag her in is profound. The more they escalate, the more obvious their motives become, and the more her stability exposes their immaturity and dependence on external drama. People who expect her to break are left unsettled, frustrated, and often embarrassed by the contrast between their agitation and her effortless composure. Her ability to remain untouched in the face of manufactured chaos isn't just a personal trait, it's a statement of power. It demonstrates that true strength isn't loud, reactionary, or performative. It's quiet, unwavering, and rooted in purpose. Every attempt to drag her into drama ends up reinforcing the truth. She moves above noise, beyond manipulation, and in alignment with something far greater than ordinary conflict. Her peace isn't fragile, and their attempts to unsettle her only highlight their own lack of control. Number 11. They expect her to rescue them emotionally or spiritually. When people realize a Sigma female is God-chosen, some immediately assume that her strength and alignment exist to serve them. They see her calm, her clarity, her unwavering sense of purpose, and they start expecting her to fix what they can't handle themselves. It doesn't matter that she hasn't offered guidance, comfort, or spiritual insight. Her presence alone makes them feel entitled to lean on her for emotional or moral rescue. What they don't see is that her strength isn't a service, a commodity, or a safety net. It's a reflection of alignment with her purpose, and it's fiercely independent of anyone else's expectations. This expectation shows up subtly at first. They ask for advice on matters they've ignored, seek comfort for problems they created, or assume she can guide them through dilemmas they never solved on their own. They might phrase it politely, "You always seem so grounded, can you help me?" But underneath it's a demand wrapped in admiration. They project their needs onto her, believing that divine favor in her life must somehow benefit them. In reality, they mistake her clarity for a personal service she's obliged to provide, when in fact she's accountable to her own path, not their insecurities or weaknesses. The most striking thing is how quickly their dependence reveals itself. The more they rely on her to resolve what they won't, the more transparent their limitations become. They assume that proximity to someone aligned with purpose should lift them, but they fail to grasp that her alignment is internal, not performative. She doesn't rescue, she doesn't correct, and she doesn't negotiate her peace for anyone else's comfort. Her refusal to comply with these unspoken demands often frustrates others, leaving them feeling abandoned or misunderstood. Yet this is exactly what reinforces her power. She demonstrates that true alignment isn't about appeasing others. It's about remaining anchored in principle, purpose, and self-mastery. People who expect rescue are forced to confront their own dependency, immaturity, and inability to carry their own weight, while she moves forward, untouched, unshakable, and profoundly sovereign in her divinely assigned path. Number 12. They feel judged by her standards even when she says nothing. One of the most unsettling things for people around a Sigma female who is God-chosen is that they feel judged even when she hasn't uttered a word. She doesn't criticize, lecture, or impose her will, yet her presence alone carries a kind of quiet authority that exposes weakness and inconsistency in others. People around her instinctively compare themselves to her, not because she asks them to, but because her discipline, clarity, and integrity make their compromises and shortcuts impossible to ignore. That silent comparison creates discomfort, guilt, and even subtle defensiveness, all without her ever saying a thing. Her standards aren't written on a sign or announced. They are lived through her actions and choices. She shows up consistently, handles challenges with composure, and navigates life by principle rather than convenience. Observing this, people become hyper-aware of their own failures, hesitation, and lack of alignment. Their mind starts replaying every choice that didn't reflect their best selves, every time they cut corners or allowed fear to guide them. They feel judged because her energy acts as a mirror, reflecting the truth they've been avoiding. What's fascinating is that this judgment isn't about her passing opinion. It's about the contrast between her life and theirs. They may laugh, joke, or even dismiss her presence, but inside they're measuring themselves against an unspoken standard she effortlessly embodies. That tension is a form of silent accountability they didn't ask for and can't escape. This effect is so profound because it forces people to confront reality without confrontation. No one likes feeling inadequate, yet her quiet alignment with purpose exposes gaps in others' character, work ethic, and integrity. She doesn't need to say a word. The truth of her life does the work. People who feel judged by her standards are being challenged to evolve, but many react with discomfort, resentment, or envy instead. Meanwhile, she moves forward untouched, proving that the weight of divine alignment is never carried by judgment, but by presence, consistency, and unwavering commitment to purpose. The reality of a Sigma female being God-chosen is not subtle. It shifts the energy of every room she enters and the mindset of every person who crosses her path. Her presence doesn't ask for validation, her success doesn't depend on applause, and her power isn't performative. It's the kind of power that forces people to confront themselves exposes hidden insecurities, and compels growth or ignites resistance. From subtle gossip to overt envy, from boundary testing to attempts at control, the reactions she provokes are a mirror reflecting the unprepared, the insecure, and the unaligned. Every look, every whisper, every attempt to measure or manipulate her speaks louder about others than it does about her. Yet she remains untouchable, not because she's untouchable by accident, but because her energy is rooted in purpose, discipline, and divine alignment. She moves through life like a force of nature, calm, unwavering, and unshakable. Those who rise in her presence do so because she reminds them what consistency, clarity, and commitment look like. Those who resent her do so because she forces them to face truths they'd rather ignore. Either way, her influence is undeniable, her impact inescapable, and her path irreversible. Understanding the behavior of people around a God-chosen Sigma female is more than insight. It's a masterclass in human nature. It's proof that authenticity, alignment, and purpose will always provoke reactions, reveal character, and separate the ready from the unready. To recognize her is to understand the power of quiet authority, uncompromising integrity, and relentless purpose. She doesn't need to explain herself. She doesn't need to justify her presence, and she doesn't need to defend her path. Her existence alone speaks volumes. If you found this insight revealing, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more content like this. Like, comment, and share this video to help others understand the subtle but powerful truths about God-chosen Sigma females. Every share spreads knowledge, every comment sparks discussion, and every like strengthens this community of awareness and growth. Don't just watch. Engage, absorb, and let these truths shape your understanding of power, alignment, and influence.